This is what every series finale of any program I want to watch, the fucking washing machine comes on. I can't hear what Daenerys Targaryen's saying. The washing machine's going too loud.
Britain. An ancient kingdom with legends of violence, cruelty, and torment in its blood. Join your hosts, Ross, John, and James, as they bravely tread where few would dare. Witness their journey into the horrific history of British horror. They are the General Witchfinders.
Ladies and gentlemen, goblins and ghouls, welcome to the 6th episode of the General Witchfinders podcast. I'm James in Bournemouth on the south coast of England.
I'm John Pountney and I'm in the south of Wales, South Wales.
And I'm Ross in Dorchester, southern England, and today's episode we are covering the Satanic Rites of Dracula.
It's happening right now in London. New York could be next. Or Paris, or Rome, or Tokyo. It's happening right now to this girl. Perhaps it's your turn next.
We are not dealing with ordinary criminals. The real force is more sinister, more obscene than any monstrosity you can think of. Lord of corruption, master of the undead, Count Dracula.
Nothing is too vile. Nothing is too dreadful. You need to know the terror, the horror.
Is that what you want, Count Dracula? A last blaze of utter horror and violence? Ghastly annihilation of an entire planet? Is this your own death wish?
I call upon you to witness my supreme triumph.
Count Dracula! Dracula! Dracula!
My revenge has spread over centuries and has just begun!
Two years after the events of Dracula AD 1972, a Secret Service agent barely escapes from an English country house in which satanic rituals are being celebrated. Before he dies, he reveals to his superiors that the four prominent members of society, a government minister, a peer, a general, and a famous scientist, are all involved in a cult led by the satanic priestess, Chin Yang. Scotland Yard's Inspector Murray is called, for whom Michael Coles reprises his role, to work on the case independently. Murray suggests consulting a noted occult expert, the heroic Professor Lorrimer Van Helsing, of course, played by Peter Cushing, who is assisted by his granddaughter Jessica, played by Joanna Lumley. Van Helsing visits his scientist friend, Julian Keeley, whom he recognised amongst the four conspirators. He discovered that Keely is undertaking bacteriological research designed to create a virulent strain of the bubonic plague. Keely referred to the 23rd of the month, which Van Helsing explains is the Sabbath of the Undead, the date that Dracula plans to unleash the plague on the world as his final revenge. The action converges back at the country house where our heroes face off against Dracula, his vampiric brides, and the satanic cultists. In the United States, the film was distributed in a heavily edited version titled Count Dracula and His Vampire Bride. This was the final Hammer film that Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing would make together. The two stars would eventually reunite one more time in the House of Long Shadow.
We've returned to the Dracula...
Grave.
Returned from the grave to the oeuvre of Hammer, a vampire film.
To the warm and cuddly embrace of Hammer.
Because I remember, John, you saying, oh, God, if you have not seen it, you'll love it. And all I say is it lived up to the billing. I thought it was absolutely superior to Dracula AD 1972 in every way.
Strongly disagree.
Well,
Here we go, then.
I think, James, that in retrospect now, do potentially agree with you. Save for a few minor technical things, like I didn't think the music was as good, and the photography potentially wasn't quite as good, even though it was actually much better than I remembered. As a film, I think it could potentially be longer.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, easily.
I could have sat through 2 hours of this, much more the spy stuff at the start and a bit more of a build-up.
No.
There was way more going on in this.
Yeah.
Go on, Ross. Why did you hate it so much?
I didn't hate it. It was just ugly compared to...
It's the 70s!
I know it's 70s, but if we had the last Dracula film, we had a similar journey through 70s London, but then it was like full and interesting and kind of vibrant, but with like cars with exhaust fumes. At least there's people around. The beginning of this film just begins with very juddery pans around empty London.
That's cool.
That's
eerie.
I absolutely love. It's really eerie.
That's eerie.
With that weird silhouette of Dracula just growing out of the corner of the screen, which deserves to be on a t-shirt, and it will be on a t-shirt by the time this episode comes out.
I absolutely love the intro.
The one thing that really startled me was that I lived in London for 5 years, and then, you recognised certain landmarks all the time. But then it shows you, like, the one area, and I was like, what the bloody hell's that? And then it pans to the right, and it's St. Paul's. And St. Paul's has been regenerated so much since the 1970s that I don't think that block's there anymore, that they show you before kind of swinging right to St. Paul's. So I enjoyed that. That was good. But in comparison to Dracula AD 1972, which had that long kind of Victorian kind of preamble, bang, straight into this one.
Straight into the empty, grey, dirty streets of London.
Yeah, which is
what they were in the 70s.
It's a brilliant setting. I as soon as it started, I thought, God, this actually feels much more realistic, bizarrely, because it's a spy film thriller mixed with Dracula. It feels much more realistic than the awful dialogue at the start of Dracula AD 1972, where they're like, "Hey, man,
what was the name of the band?"
The Stone Ground.
I just invited the Stone Ground, mother. I didn't invite the group.
I missed the youthful element of that.
You missed Caroline Munro writhing on the floor covered in blood.
Well, there was another, in my opinion, foxier woman writhing around with blood later on.
Well.
All in good time. All in good time.
So I've written down Shinzano, because there was a big ad for Shinzano in Piccadilly Circus. And
that was famous.
I realised that I've never had Shinzano, and it must have been a really big drink at the time.
Yeah, and now you're having a pint of it while we do this podcast.
Leonard Rossiter was involved in a huge Shinzano campaign.
And Caroline Munro was the Navy's rum girl for most of the 70s. So tonight's podcast is brought to you by defunct drinks brands.
And Derek Griffiths was the voice of Pimptone, wasn't he?
Probably. And the voice of Dark Towers.
Yes, which
of course, more on that to come. Yeah,
coming soon.
So I got Dole London.
All right, well,
yeah, you're outvoted on that.
But what I would say, the thing that immediately appealed to me on this one, and the thing that kind of stayed with me throughout, is that there is this now very long-held tradition in this country that people at the absolute top of society are up to something.
Yeah, I love that part.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was mentioned in the screenplay, right? The original Hellfire Club from the 1700s,
correct.
which really did exist.
Yeah.
And then moving on through history into the 1800s and then the start of the 20th century, the Society of the Golden Dawn.
Yeah.
With Aleister Crowley. Again, very high-ranking people involved in black magic hijinks. And then, very recently, it's reared its head again. In this country, anyway, I'm doing this and what I'm about to say is for the benefit of people who may be listening to this overseas. Hello out there. But in this country, we had a thing following the death of Jimmy Savile, and we found out his kind of like horrendous crimes that he perpetrated. A man came forward called Carl Beach.
Yeah, I thought of all this as well, James.
There you go, Joe. Who said, I've been abused by a load of VIPs, a load of people in a very powerful position, including the Secretary of State for Health, the Secretary of State Minister for Portfolio for Defence, who was Leon Britton, and the head of MI5, which sounds eerily like the people that are involved in this. So I did think as I was watching it, did he watch this film? But even if he didn't, and it was called, Operation Midland, and the British police spent a lot of money kind of going after these guys, saying that you're involved in some kind of satanic kind of worship cult. And of course, it all turned out to be absolute, the work of a fantasist, and he's nuts and in prison now.
Was this the stuff that was meant to have happened in Dolphin Park Flats or something like that?
Yes.
Is that what it's called?
All
Dolphin
that,
Court, isn't it? Yeah. Yes.
Featuring, he said at one point, he said things like, "Oh, there were 3 of us, and we had to decide which one of us was going to be murdered." And things like that. And they were actually physically pinning poppies to our chests.
Yes.
During and all of this kind of
we
mad
had to
stuff.
pick which 3 of us was going to be murdered.
Me, probably.
I've got children.
I've got a cat.
There you go.
James, I thought of all that as well, actually. And I thought it's a weird to see. Also, I thought of COVID as well, and we'll find out as the story develops that, it's to do with
a plague.
A plague, what's the word?
Unleashed.
Yeah, perpetrated against society as a way of just doing away with society.
Yes.
Is that what COVID is?
No.
No. But then, just one quick thing on the Carl Beach claims. There was a really good documentary on the BBC all about it, which basically detailed him and how it's an absolute fantasy world. It was absolutely down the line, serious documentary filmmaking. And then when it finished, as the credits played, the music they chose was Charles and Eddie's "Would I Lie to You?"
Oh, yeah.
Which, as you're watching it, you're like, what? It was like something out of Chris Morris, the Day Today. It was mental.
Is it as good as Was Jimmy Savile a Wizard, a documentary on YouTube?
It's in that league, and hopefully we'll touch on that at some point.
That's one of my favourite things I've ever... Have you seen that, John?
No.
Oh, it's amazing.
Oh, it's
I don't watch anything on YouTube,
bonkers.
Unfortunately.
Let's analyse the phrase jingle jangle. It can be broken down into 2 words. Jingle, a catchy array of words in prose or verse, and jangle, which means to chatter, argue noisily, or whine. Although both share the same Germanic root, jengelin, jingle evolved to mean a catchy song in an advert.
In the occult world, language is an extremely powerful tool. Since ancient times, magic words have been used by magicians to cast spells and invoke spirits. Some are well known to us now, but others have remained obscured through the ages by the secret groups who still use them to this day. This is why we spell words.
Right, so what I immediately felt with this one in comparison to Dracula AD 1972 was this was based on a better idea, that these very powerful people running society may have raised Dracula or raised some force that they can't control.
Yeah. But we won't show that bit. We're going to just cut straight to...
You don't need to show that bit.
You can intuit. And that's something else that I noted that I like. They don't spell everything out for you. In those opening scenes, I was like, what is happening here? And
we then cut to a chap with a moustache tied up in a bed.
Yes.
Then a man in an Afghan...
magnificent fur-lined waistcoat. The uniform of the henchman in this movie, isn't it? Very convenient of them.
I wanted to call them Hell's Angels, but I didn't know what to call them. But their uniform is kind of black, the man from Milk Tray outfit.
Turtleneck.
Teamed with maybe some dark shades, a handlebar moustache, and an Afghan waistcoat.
One of them looked like Freddie Mercury, didn't he?
Well, I was going to say, I thought he looked like Matt Berry being Stephen Toast in Toast of London. And it really felt like, at certain scenes, it felt like a Toast of London scene.
It's a hell of a look.
It.
It's a hell of a look.
Very true.
One of them's in a computer room making a cup of coffee, whilst downstairs the VIPs are indulging in a satanic ritual where Ching Yang is about to slit the throat of a cock.
And before we're introduced to who the satanic disciples are, I just put down that they look like they're a parish council. Now, after the dedication to Baphomet, can we please decide who will be having the church hall for D-Day weekend? Is it going to be the Rotary Club or is it going to be the Sea Scouts? Thank you. Wing Lang, if you'd like to carry on with the throat cutting.
I have to say that the bunting was left up last time. It got very wet in the rain, and some of it has gone very mouldy and has had to be thrown away. So if
there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, there's never any sexy Satanists, is there?
No, it's always old pervs
licking their lips.
Nothing. There's nothing worse than looking at a load of old men leering in a cowled cape.
I won't wear mine next week.
While the ceremony is going on, the guy who's been tied to the bed makes good his escape.
Yes.
Cinema, throughout my lifetime, has made me believe that I could get out of having my hands tied.
Just wiggle around a bit.
Up to. That's all, for a prolonged period of time. Just go like this for a while. And sort of rub them together.
Or grab any sharp object and just rub it a little bit.
Rub it together and bang, you're out.
Yeah, it's the same way that you can get a necklace off anyone just by giving it a little yank and it will come off their neck.
What does that happen in, Cleves?
Every film. So people always have their necklaces pulled off their neck, don't they? Not every film.
Every film.
Every film. Citizen Kane.
Remember that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark?
8.5.
But it does happen in Raiders of the Lost Ark, actually. I'm going to look that up.
Does it?
Probably. Someone has a necklace removed from their neck, don't they? Was it my version of the film, or did it go to a really weird
speed?
Yeah, weird speed at that point.
It was kind of a couple of times.
It was kind of slowed down, wasn't it?
Slowed down, yeah, weirdly. I thought that was quite interesting, actually, that a directorial decision, or they didn't have enough footage that looked realistic. Like John Pertwee being strangled by the Nestine, as we've discussed before. Maybe it was the man was doing a bit of a John Pertwee.
John, what episode was that?
Well, it's the only story ever to be shot entirely on 16mm.
Oh, would that be Spearhead from Space?
And that is the 4-episode monolith that is Spearhead from Space,
which will have to be covered.
I think we should bring that in. I think we should bring it in. Yeah,
Patreon special.
I love how we're like a stealth Doctor Who podcast as well. Really.
There's a great contrast between the magic that is supposedly happening and then like the mundane of what the gangster and the kind of dingy...
Yeah, that was quite nice. Yeah.
The shitty bit of this country house. So you see the posh bit of the country house where they're all lording it up with the naked girl and the cockerel. Whereas this poor bastard's in bed, tied to a bed in a really grotty, like, servants' quarters. I quite liked that.
Do you think after he's done in the henchman, he stands up and bangs his head on the light? Do you reckon that was meant to happen?
I don't know. It was weird, wasn't it?
Notice.
So I was thinking, that's going to come up. That's going to come back later because it felt so obvious that it happened that it felt like it needed to be deliberate. But it was almost like, oh fuck it, okay, next scene, darling.
Yeah. Yeah, you'll be sad to know that the composer of this film isn't the guy from Manfred Mann who did the music for Dracula AD 1972. I haven't written in my notes who the composer is, but I do know he was the composer for Kojak in America, with our cousins in America. And I think that the music in this film is quite odd, and it does give it a really weird feel, like Dirty Harry or something like that. It's a really odd 70s American cop show vibe with the music. Rather than...
I did miss the music from... But there was a couple of bits where they played some like a little bit of a theme from the last Dracula film, but is that the Dracula theme, John?
Mm-hmm.
He manages to kill the guy or knock the guy out, but he breaks a very, very big and obvious beam of light across a doorway, which sets off an alarm.
State-of-the-art security,
yeah,
all the way through the film.
Or ahead of its time, I'd say, James.
Yeah, absolutely.
Straight away, all the VIPs suddenly start trying to rub the blood inverted crosses off their heads. As if it wasn't me.
And then he runs out of the house that looks a bit like the house, but I don't think it is the house that's in From Russia with Love that we've seen.
I think it's the same house which is in every film in the 70s.
I'd love to find out where it is.
I'd love to know where this house is, yeah.
Because at one point later on in the film, you can see there's a town in the distance.
Yes.
It's towards the end, I was like, where is that?
It's a rather nice looking... I'm sure people know, and I'm sure people that know more than us know, and maybe they'll even tell us. But he runs out. Yeah. He finds his way past the gate, I think.
No, he can't get out he can't get out the gate because the guy on the motorbike comes along.
On the motorbike.
Oh, that's what happened. So he
crashes
shot the guy
into the gate.
Yeah, brilliant stunt. I thought there was some great
stunts
Havoc,
in John?
This. I don't know if it was Havoc, actually. Maybe it was. Derek Ware, rest in peace. He's chased by the hoodlums on the motorbikes. One is shot by a man in a Rover P5B with a...
John would know what the car was.
With a silencer.
Yeah.
He crashes through the gate. It's a really good
It is a good stunt. I've put down cool stunt. I'm enjoying this.
Yeah. Then the next guy comes out and he's shot in the face. Through his helmet, so he obviously had like a blood capsule in his mouth or something.
At no point did anyone in the car get out the car to help the chap. They actually start driving away before he gets in the car.
That's what I liked.
Well, in a bit, I noticed they're very light on help in what I can only describe as like some subsection of MI5.
Yeah.
They're basically just getting the information out of him. No one's giving him any medical help at all.
Even
None.
the doctor.
And then he's just like, yeah, exactly. He's like, oh, he's dead.
Yeah. That guy who was uncomfortable previously, he's just died.
Dead.
He's not suffering anymore. Why? He's dead.
Dead.
So that's when they're back at their 70s base. It looks like something out of a waiting room from 2001.
Yeah, that's
also cool.
It's a great set.
Because I thought that it's that whole The Prisoner and the Avengers vibe of like 1960s, 1970s dreamt British espionage, which is Bond-esque. That whole, once again, this whole kind of the ongoing theme or motif sometimes in British life. People involved at the very top level of society are up to no good, and also there's kind of groups and wings and parts of British intelligence that have got cool underground bases that we don't know of.
And that's
coming across. And then the line that I wrote down was while they're interviewing this poor guy, while not offering him any medical assistance whatsoever, he says, they take strength from their own blasphemy. Yeah. And I thought, I do that on a daily basis. Yeah. I don't really think that you need to get MI5 on me for that. I take some strength from my own blasphemy. Yes, right.
I think he describes them as filthy, obscene rites.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
Satanic rites, even. So it's written by Don Houghton, who is the same man that wrote the previous Dracula AD 1972, but I think this is much more within his kind of remit as a kind of thriller writer.
What Doctor Who did he write, John?
He definitely wrote, I think he wrote Inferno, which is the last story of John Pertwee's first season. And he wrote The Mind of Evil, which is also a really good one, but that's one that involves Roger Delgado's Master. And I do think that later on you do see a bit of a Doctor-Master kind of relationship between Dracula and Lorrimer Van Helsing. He wrote a lot of stuff, but I think that he wrote some professionals. He created Take the High Road, as we've... and he also wrote some Sapphire and Steel, actually.
Did he?
Wow.
Yeah.
There's themes, there's the webs of connections.
Did he create Take the High Road during some Satanic rite?
We can only speculate, Ross. Maybe
he did.
We meet the receptionist, secretary stroke
Jane,
recorder of Last Man's final words. Was this around about the same time as Wonder Woman? Because I felt like she was... completely.
No, it's years before that.
Is it?
Years before.
Well, maybe she was the inspiration for Diana Princess Look in the Wonder Woman TV series, because I was strangely drawn to to a secretary looks. You know?
Oh, she's very attractive woman, but I think that's implied that she's demure and specky 4 eyes. She's got glasses and stuff,
and drives one of many minis in this film.
Yeah, that sequence is amazing. Where she's obviously driving past Oil Drum Lane where Steptoe and Son live in that part, definitely. So we find the guy dies. We find out that there's a number 2 vault where all of these secrets are locked away. And then when the guy dies, they're going to get rid of him using the usual routine, in inverted commas. And then they mention Inspector Murray, who is the nominal hero of our previous film in the 2-film Hammer special universe.
Diptych.
Yeah. And then we get some more shots of London.
Yeah.
For no reason. I don't know why they're dropped in at that point, because they don't happen again throughout the film.
John, is it a wide angle lens?
Really super wide angle.
There's a great shot later on where Van Helsing walks from one side of the screen to the other, because it's such a wide angle lens. It's almost like he comes towards it and then back away again.
Yes.
That's my favourite part of the film.
I think at that point, these lenses wouldn't have been around for very long, and they would have been really incredibly expensive to hire.
And exciting to use.
So that's probably why they only used them for like one morning in London, and then they pissed half of the budget up the wall on just hiring one lens from Panavision or whoever it is. So then almost straight away, we're into this sequence where we've got Freddie Jones sweating and being weird in this weird ceremony, and then it cuts backwards and forwards between...
They're sort of briefing Murray. I was just watching it for the second time when I was having my dinner just now. It's about, I would say, 30 minutes into the film, and they're just recycling the same satanic rite as what we saw at the beginning. It's like
it's a different woman. It's a different woman.
No,
it's
not. No, it's the same.
It is
it's the same blonde woman.
Is it?
Yep.
This part was William Franklin, who I think is the main masculine hero in this until he gets killed an hour in.
Is he the guy who's got, for some reason, got his shirt unbuttoned to his navel?
That's
I like that. That showed that he'd been working hard.
Yeah. His way of showing he's working hard is unbuttoning his shirt to his navel and saying,
like me at the end of a parents' evening,
"You've been up for 12 hours. Why don't you go home, Jeannie or Jane or whatever your fucking name is?" Yeah. I love that scene because it's so masculine and British 70s. It's ridiculous.
Yes.
It's like, look at me, I've got my...
But he would have been better played by the guy at the Stone Tape, though, wouldn't he?
Everyone would have been better.
What I'd like to do is recast Satanic Rites of Dracula, but do every character in CGI as the guy from the Stone Tape, even the women.
He's now my favourite actor. It's taken me a week to edit our last episode because we got quite hysterical through it, and there's lots of edits in it. However, us talking about that actor and then me editing clips of him from the Stone Tape in it just made me appreciate how amazing he is. And
bonkers.
You're a country lad. You know what rats sounds like.
Anyway.
I want Wagner on a ball bearing. Sorry, to keep me harking back to previous episodes.
We got a mythology now.
So the spy man, who I don't think we ever learn his name, had a very nice prop watch had a microfilm camera inside.
Yeah, which he opens up and surely exposes the film.
Yeah, I thought that. So unless it's videotape, he actually just opened it and ruined it. But so he's managed to get photos of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and then the fifth Beatle. Not in this case George Martin or Yoko Ono. It's just a blank picture. So they're like, he's cocked this up. There's no one there. But what do we know about horror lore that says what creatures don't appear in mirrors or photographs?
I really like that. And once again, our recurring theme that old photos and photos can look spooky.
Yeah.
I really like. They were like, well, what's the deal with this one?
Yeah.
And then we're going, who is this? And I did think, obviously they've got to market it as Dracula, but I did think The Fifth Guest is a better title for this film.
Oh, that is that's a great title. What I like about this part is that it's the big, I'm going to use the word dichotomy here, which is a big word. So you have this...
Prophylactic.
I thought you said prophylactic.
No.
So you've got this contrast between the spy world and the spy genre. which is a genre that you believe in because it's spies and it's James Bond and it's the series of Michael Caine in where I've forgotten his name, The Ipcress File and all those.
Yeah.
But you've kind of got that clashing into Dracula and folk horror and all that horror lore, which is a very different thing. And that's why I like the way it rubs against it. And then you go straight into a bit where Janie has left work. Genie, the Genie has left work in a Mark 1 Mini because it's got sliding windows rather than roll down windows. And wind down, not roll down. You wouldn't roll a window down. She just then is chased by some hoodlums, isn't she? So the hoodlums obviously know where the secret base of MI8 is, or whatever they're called. And they kidnap her. But that sequence is great.
They have to smash the windscreen with a massive tire iron.
Yeah. Which he holds up at her.
Yeah, which means a large rat couldn't headbutt its way through the windscreen of a car.
It was I think it was a Hillman Minx, the car in the book.
Yeah, exactly. So that rat's head would have to be a strong tire iron.
Nuts. So I mean, yet more evidence that James Herbert was on drugs.
I think that the rat was maybe a crossbreed with a tire iron, and that's what James Herbert hasn't disclosed. That's a great sequence. You see a lot of dirty, grotty London, and again, I really like that vibe where it's the flip side of the first film, where you've now got this horrible, like I said, Oil Drum Lane where Steptoe and Son live, and then she turns up, and it's like, it's a dead end, and then these two guys smash the Mini, and that's it. Goodbye, bye, Genie. He's gone.
So while she's been abducted by our satanic groups, it's then the returning police officer, whatever his name is, I've forgotten. Murray says,
Bill Wyman.
Look, lads, in this film, fantastic kind of platform shoes and flares.
Yeah,
he sports throughout. And he says, well, look, I used to work with a guy, and this happened a couple of years ago, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And let's go talk to Van Helsing.
Who is aged 20 years by the time they get a walking corpse.
We'll get on to the passage of time in this movie shortly. And, they go and see him, and he makes mention of the aforementioned Hellfire Club and all the rest of it. I did like the line, witches and goblins, or whatever it is. And he went, well, goblins are from fairy tales. They don't exist. Witches do exist, but 90% charlatans. Which I really like that line. Meaning the 10% of them aren't. I thought, that's cool. I really like that.
Yeah.
And then he went, but of course, this may all be the work of dun 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 Dracula. And I put, yes, the etching is back.
The return of the etching. Yeah.
The return of the etching.
They were so glad they kept
the amazing etching that everyone had. Yeah, I know. They got more value for money out of the etching of Dracula, which he keeps in his study.
You can buy that online, by the way. I found
brilliant.
It.
Can you?
Hey, of course you can.
What I like about this scene is that they all chain smoke for the entire
scene.
Yeah.
Apart from Murray rejects the cigarettes. And he isn't offered one again. I noticed that. Van Helsing's massive cigarette case.
Huge cigarette case. And Peter Cushing smokes about 58 cigarettes.
He holds them in a strange way as well.
He holds them like Peter Cushing. What I have to say about Peter Cushing, again in this film, his hair looks incredible. I think his hair looks like the best hair I've ever seen in the world. And secondly, he smashes his dialogue out of the park because he has to utter some absolute rubbish in this film. as Van Helsing, you're expected, but he is so believable.
How old was he at this point? He looks about 90. He looks like Prince Philip going into hospital today, which is probably dead by the time this episode comes out.
I'll Google this now. Go on, carry on.
Right. Okay. So.
Oh, this is when Joanna Lumley turns up with some coffee.
Enter Joanna Lumley,
Joanna
recast.
Lumley. Very comely Joanna Lumley, as Harry Enfield once said in the 90s.
I had a look online. What was the deal? Because I thought, was Stephanie Beacham already off in America pursuing fame and fortune by then? But apparently on IMDb it just says she was unavailable. So they just recast her. But it's just kind of like, you remember my granddaughter? I didn't know if they were going to do this as his other granddaughter, but no, it's supposed to be the same character.
She's a completely different character. She's no longer a hippie into all these.
She's learned the error of her ways.
She's a scientist now.
She's learned the error of her ways.
2 years have passed, and she's become a scientist, so that's fine. Peter Cushing at this point, by my reckoning, would have been 50. 58, 59.
No, he looks like he's in his 90s.
He was grieving the loss of his wife. I've told you that last time.
It hit him hard.
It hit him very hard. And Helen and I were watching a film yesterday that Peter Cushing popped up in. He's a very thin man when he's healthy and not grieving. So when he's grieving, he literally looks like a living skeleton. But he's got the best hair. His hair is so perfectly coiffed that I can't believe that it's not a wig.
Thing of beauty.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It should be in the Versailles. I thought it was very interesting that they'd obviously tweaked Jessica for this film to make her fit in more with...
Yeah, to have no character whatsoever.
She was an assistant for all intents and purposes.
And she's a bit more like Joe Grant to Pertwee's Doctor, isn't she? Where she just bumbles into things in a silly way. So you're told that she's intelligent, but then all she does is sneak around behind people's backs.
Or serve drinks.
Serve drink. Or serve soup.
Can we come to the soup later?
We'll get onto the soup.
I've written down, what the hell is this?
She lets it be known that Van Helsing knows one of the guys, one of the four guys, and when you watch it the second time, you realise he was like, "Oh fuck, stop talking, you let me." Because he's hiding the fact that he's friends with one of the guys because he wants to go and investigate himself before he tells the coppers on him.
He knows what's up,
and that's Freddie as Julian, Dr. Julian.
The most famous scientist in the world, but anyone who takes a glimpse of him
he's won the Nobel Prize.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah, but I know every Nobel Prize winner by sight, don't you, James?
She's a scientist, Cleves.
We were told they were at university at the same time.
Yeah, but even the policemen recognise him by sight as well.
Yeah. Well, that's when we didn't have a media
Celebrity
that was run by Murdoch and was just all articles about Kerry Katona and the Kardashians. Back in the 60s, when the Times was edited by people like Harold Evans, we had proper news stories, Ross.
Okay.
That was the week that was on.
Exactly, James. David Frost would let you know who these people were.
We cut to...
Fabulous Winter Light and the Albert Hall.
Oh, yes.
It's lovely winter light in this film. They must have shot it in November, December.
Yeah, at 4 a.m, because again, no one's around.
It looks, but that's the point, Cleves. It's really good.
It's the atmos of it.
I didn't like it, but it was nice and foggy. It's nice and foggy.
You're nice and foggy.
Io Cinzano Bianco, signora.
Thank you.
Ah, yes, gracias.
Ah, due?
No, mine was a Cinzano as well. Now that's better. Oh, can't you just smell those Italian wines? Suffused with herbs and spices from four continents. Why, being boring. Oh, sorry. Sorry. All right. Getting your head down, sweetie. Jolly good idea.
From the house of Cinzano Bianco.
Enter Big Chris Lee.
Yeah, these scenes are intercut.
When Van Helsing goes to see the Nobel-winning scientist, who's clearly under some kind of hypnotic suggestion, he's not right, is he?
He's not
sweating
right.
profusely.
He's not right.
He's all over the show. He said, I grew the culture, and then I exposed it to radioactive neutrons to create this super black plague. And I thought, well, that's getting closer, Hammer. Well done in terms of science. Yeah. Following their all over the show version on Frankenstein, where remember they put forward the idea that if you just give someone a genius sculptor's hands, they then will become genius sculptors themselves.
He goes in, he knocks over this is a guy who he knows going in works in deadly diseases.
Yeah.
He knocks over a petri dish and starts touching it with his bare hands. I'll be like, I'll be out of that room like a fucking shot.
What about the end?
Yeah.
And what we now know about is that they'd all be dead.
But also, he's doing all this work in his flat.
Yeah. But he's telling them, this is a lovely
place you have here.
Yeah, this is no... what's the name of the laboratory in the stone tape?
Ryan Electrics.
But he's very sweaty, and he's got lots of hair growing on the top of his nose, which keeps getting backlit, which really put me off. But the whole time I was thinking, I know that actor from somewhere.
Oh my God, he's been around for years, Cleves.
He was the teacher in Adrian Mole. He
was
Popeye Scrotum or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's how I had to go away and look that up.
Freddie Jones.
And then in comes Freddie Mercury,
aka Stephen Toast. One of the heavies of the Satanists, and he shoots Van Helsing. And for a minute I thought, whoa, okay.
From about how far away? 3 meters?
A foot.
Yeah, not far away.
It's not
the
very
bullet
far.
Bounces off his head.
Yeah.
It grazes him, doesn't it? He just gets out of his way in time. And then we see that he passes out.
Yeah.
And what I've written down is, why do they leave him alive?
Exactly, yeah. So he obviously shot him to kill.
All you can say is that they're under orders to frighten him, not to kill him at this
point.
Why did
he aim the gun at his face and fire?
Because Dracula wants him alive, Cleves. That's obvious. Right. Dracula's controlling all of this with the power of his mind from the top of his skyscraper.
Don't spoil the enormous, exciting reveal.
It is a great reveal, though.
It is. When Van Helsing regains consciousness, we see that the scientist has taken his own life. But how they show it is really weird. First of all, you get like a crash zoom on his brown loafers.
Yes.
The horror! Footwear! Casual shoes!
That's what you want me to zoom in on, was it, Gav? Oh, fuck it, yeah, go on, let's go.
Go on with that. And then zoom in again on his face. Which Ross just did a really great impression. I shared the screenshot of the guys earlier, but it's like
brilliant.
In our ongoing recurring theme on this podcast of horror shots of people kind of going with their tongue out, looking either dead or strangled.
So intercut with this part is this poor secretary, Jean Jeannie's in bed, in the same bed that the prisoner was in, so it's not looking good for her.
Lots of banging.
There's a lot of banging, the windows banging, the doors banging, and then someone lets off a smoke bomb underneath her door. But then in comes Christopher Lee as Count Dracula.
Enter Big Chris Lee, yeah.
Does quite a good smoochy kind of...
yeah, it's quite erotic.
It's quite erotic.
Yeah, I like that, yeah.
It's literally the least erotic thing I've ever seen. Looking at a bowl of cornflakes is more erotic than this.
Wow, I'm easily triggered.
And then in the meantime, we've got Freddie Jones going, evil rules.
Yes.
What else does he say? Slap. Oh, there's a great bit where Peter Cushing slaps him twice in the face.
Yes, the effete slap of Van Helsing.
Yeah.
Dracula comes in.
Yeah.
Hypnotizes her. She's all like lots of wide-eyed. Yeah, give it to me. And then bites her neck, crunch. Ah! But a very orgasmic arg.
And crow flies out by the sound of it.
Exactly. You love my crow voice. But I've got to say, love the outfit Christopher Lee was wearing in this one. I love that little tie pin in his...
he's got like a 3-button suit on, hasn't he? He looks quite kind of...
Again, this is the costume
Carnaby Street.
From this episode, this is the costume I'm going to wear. When we have the General Witchfinders convention
live,
on the Friday night.
Yeah, where can we do that? It's got to be
chapter.
No. It's got to be in a better theatre. I think National Film Theatre or somewhere like that. South Bank.
Whitby.
Get the goths in.
Yeah. And there's a great shot. He's carrying her down the corridor.
And it's obviously not him.
The cloak looks great in that point.
Yeah, but the wig and the fact that it's a different man doesn't look very good.
I was just so overcome with the erotic tension of it all. I couldn't see.
I was staring at cornflakes in that part.
Cut to unbuttoned shirt man Murray. They've driven Joanna Lumley all the way to the house to tell her we don't need you here and we don't want you here.
And they've parked right outside the gatehouse again.
Exactly.
That's what MI5 do.
Yeah.
Park
And basically say...
In plain sight. No one will think that we're spies if we literally park outside.
We park outside the front gate.
How do they get in? Or do they lie? They lie.
Yeah. No, he just says, I'm the police. You've got to let me in.
They buzz the intercom and say, we've had complaints that there was hoodlums in the area last night making a lot of noise from local residents. And the Chinese lady goes, there are no local residents. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, and then Joanna Lumley sneaks in behind them.
Joanna Lumley is Joe Grant, sneaks in behind them.
Lovely outfit, yellow belt.
Yeah, great outfit. Finds a way into the cellar where Dracula's wives are obviously...
Why are they chained up?
Well,
because they're out of control, Ross. They'll go and...
They're hungry vampires.
Bite people.
They'll go and bite the hoodlums in the Afghan goats.
Okay, I suppose so.
Got to control them.
It'd be a right mess.
And they'll use their sexy hypnotic powers like Jane did.
Yeah. Some very attractive women in that basement.
Well, the blonde one. That's probably about it. But then the Jane is tied up to the wall.
Yeah, Jane,
Jane,
tied to the wall.
Joanna Lumley goes to sort of let her out, and then I was very interested in Joanna Lumley's eyebrows at that point.
Oh, yeah, they're odd in this.
It's very strange.
Yeah.
But then Jeanie starts hypnotising her, and then goes for the bite. But the vampires in these films are completely shit. They can't bite anyone. They're not very strong. Easily defeated. All you need to do is just sort of go, and like stand still.
Run from left to right.
Yeah. And then
they are chained up at this point.
But then there's a slap.
Reach is limited.
And then there's a slap fight. They're all slapping her.
Yeah. And one of them grabs her boobs.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was odd, wasn't it? I did think that was odd, where she goes to grope her.
Yeah.
But Joanna Lumley screams. And Murray and William Franklin are alerted to her screams. They run in.
Oh yeah,
and save
comedy
her.
Running.
They run down some steps. They go through 2 doors, and then they save her. But in the process, I think Jeanie is impaled. Then isn't she on?
Yes, because first of all she's like, "Help me!" She reverts back to normal.
Yeah,
and he quite rightfully thinking,
"She's a vampire."
No, first of all, he thinks, well, look, good secretaries are hard to come by these days. So I best release her.
Yeah.
Yeah, he tries to smash up a wine rack, and that doesn't work. So then he smashes up a coffin, and then uses that as a stake.
I don't know if you're thinking of it. Oh, yeah.
No, and you see a nipple at that point.
Yeah. Yes, you do.
It's a nipple-heavy film.
A nipple-heavy. Yeah,
there's a lot.
Something happened in the 2 years between.
Men and women.
There was lots more nipples in this film.
Yeah.
There's no nudity at all in Dracula AD 1972.
No.
I don't think it's there.
No. And I would say sexier because of it.
Well,
controversial.
On that bombshell.
Oh, no, yeah.
I think stop the podcast here. Drop the mic, please.
All afternoon I've been watching that. I've been watching that sequence over and over again. Oh, no. Dracula AD 1972 was sexier. He says on mic. Trying to look cool.
How the hell do you fight a vampire? Cloves of garlic. There are many ways. The symbols of good are used to combat the forces of evil. The crucifix, the word of God, is written in the Holy Bible. Clear, running water symbolizing purity. And it lives in mortal dread of silver.
Anything else?
The hawthorn tree, which provided Christ with his crown of thorns, the light of day.
And a wooden stake driven through the heart.
What about the 23rd, the date that Keely
mentioned? Yes, indeed, the 23rd of this month. That, I fear, is the worst of all. It is the Sabbath for the undead.
What significance has that?
There are satanic circles which govern our fate and the fate of this earth, perhaps even the universe. Now, throughout history, there are certain times, certain dates which are marked by awesome catastrophes. Each event is carefully plotted, and a definite pattern emerges. Every disaster this world has ever suffered coincides with the point wherein these circles meet and cross. In this century alone, they heralded the outbreak of 2 devastating world wars.
And another disaster is imminent?
Could be.
The 23rd, that's the day after tomorrow.
Now, this must happen tomorrow at midnight.
Well, that's even sooner.
At that hour, the devil holds a balance of power. He marshals his disciples, the living and the dead.
In Satanic covens, it is a celebration of supreme blasphemy, the Sabbath for the undead.
Then cut to dramatic soup eating. So
yes. Well, is it soup?
Yes.
Is it?
Because one bowl was red.
It's very thin.
Yeah, blood.
Yeah.
Blood.
Minestrone, is that a thin soup?
I said perhaps.
While they're having a debriefing at Van Helsing's flat, he's got a big silver soup dish.
Soup tureen.
Tureen, that's the word I'm looking for.
It's a large
a tureen of soup, which he's serving up to everyone to have this weird red. And it's like, what? How did this happen? What happened?
And it's out of little things that look
silver
like
bowl.
Cups, but with two handles.
Yeah, which they're slurping out of. And
I don't think they're silver cleaves. I think they're china, aren't they? They're white china.
Oh.
But I thought that's very in keeping with that whole kind of 1970s medical advice thing of if you've been involved in some dreadful kind of trauma, or just give them just have a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Oh, go on, have a cup of tea and sit down.
Have some soup and lots of cigarettes.
That's probably what they did to the spy at the start. Just give him some fags and a cup of tea. You'll be all right.
He died. Yeah, he's just smoked 10 fags and died of emphysema. Yes, that's a great scene because again, Cushing smashes his dialogue
through mouthfuls of soup,
and they have soup.
I would say
terrific.
This
soup.
was the apart from the madness of the soup. This was the sequence that made me enjoy the film. Number one, Peter Cushing talks about how there is a pattern to history.
Yeah,
and that there is
I got a picture of it.
Pattern.
Yeah,
right, which is cool, and it kind of breaks
it.
out like this illustration. And of course, if you've ever read From Hell, Alan Moore's From Hell, this is like one of the themes that he uses in that as well. Is that like history has like a dark architecture. And that certain events recur at certain times. I thought, oh, that's really cool. And he says, oh, we're building up to one now. And then we're coming up to the Devil's Sabbath.
Yeah.
They don't say the Sabbath, the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Which is good, which is the time when, they're going to have the most. I thought, that's a cool idea. I really, really like that.
Yeah.
And then he lays down on top of us on top. He goes, well, it looks like what they were going to use is they're going to unleash this biological weapon on us, which we now know is Black Plague times 1 million. And what Peter Cushing then says, oh, but if they unleash that will kill everyone on Earth, and Dracula won't have anyone to feed off of. Peter Cushing says, maybe this is what he wants.
Yeah,
maybe he wants to die. I thought
his final revenge.
Great idea.
This is really great.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Well, they're saying that he's fed up of living forever. That he wants this to end.
And I thought that's a brilliant idea. That's really cool.
He doesn't want to keep being resurrected by idiots like Johnny Alucard or Roy. The blood of Roy Kinnear, I think, at some point gets splashed on him, which must be pretty tiresome. It's got the thing of where the Colonel, who is played by an actor who is in every British film ever,
as a Colonel,
and probably advertised like tunes or something.
Yeah, but at what point did they say we don't need colonels in films anymore? And that poor man.
I think they should bring them back. I like having a colonel as an authority figure.
I suppose as National Service sort of waned, we didn't need so many military people in our films anymore.
My department has been closed. My people are being arrested, and you're telling me it's vampires. Kind of hammers it home that it's like a real world thing.
And then the top scientist Joanna Lumley turns up with some coffee.
Even though she's just been through a massively traumatic event.
I'm fine now.
I'm all right. I've shrugged it off.
I wasn't bitten by a vampire in the
I really like that whole kind of Freudian Thanatos urge. If Freud only mentions it very briefly, other Freudian psychotherapists have developed that idea that at heart, all human beings want to destroy themselves. That's what we want to do, and that's the cause of war. Even though rationally we know it's stupid. Why do that? Well, because at heart we want to and we need to destroy ourselves. And again, I was just like, well, I'm really impressed. Already, this film, in comparison to Dracula AD 1972, has got much bigger themes, something that piqued my interest.
Much stronger ideas. Because there's no ideas in Dracula AD 1972, really.
He's back.
Yeah, young kids. It's an attempt just to update it.
I've got to say, though, as always, talking to you guys has made this so much better than
watching it.
Yeah, I hated it when I was watching it. I was like, this is so shit.
It's brilliant film.
But talking,
Ross,
just
you
James.
You gave the Rats 100 out of 10. and you read it 3 times.
So we're building up to the end now. He says, yes, 2 years ago, on the site of St. Barthol's Church, I fought Dracula for the last time. And, and they resisted doing any flashback sequences there. And then he was like, the other day, I was out and I was walking past the office block, which now stands in its place. And there's an amazing blue plaque.
Yeah.
All they needed to have was a little bit of wooden spoke sticking out of the ground.
As was in 1972. But then I thought about it. He then says that what's the name of the industry again, Ross?
DD Denim.
DD Denim.
DD Denim, right? It's massive. It's huge.
It's a huge building.
And you're like, wait a minute. So he's been seen off again in 1972, resurrected, and built this multinational corporation in under 18 months.
Yeah.
And I just put, get Dracula on The Apprentice. He'd win.
Get Dracula fucking sorting out COVID.
There you go.
I thought similar things, but I thought that it's more flattering in that the way that they're kind of pertaining to the fact that Dracula is meant to be this kind of military genius. He's not just someone that just walks around in films and bites people. Because this is what Christopher Lee always had the problem with, that they never invested any character into the character, and all he had to do, I think one of the films, he has no dialogue at all.
He does talk too much in this film, I
think Dracula Prince of
Darkness.
I
like that he had dialogue.
I like him.
Well, even the silly accent.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's all right.
Yeah. So
come on. You can't play the silly accent card, Ross, when you really love Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, that's the best.
There you go.
That is the best.
I love it.
where you've got... Okay, go on, carry on.
It's just Winona Ryder, that is.
All of it. Yeah. It's just amazing.
All of it. So, William Franklin, the Colonel, Inspector Murray, and Joanna Lumley go off in their Rover P5B to stake out the mansion for seemingly no reason. They stand there with binoculars, Murray and Joanna Lumley. While this is happening, there's a really good twist where Franklin walks back to the car and finds that the Colonel has been shot, which I had forgotten happens, and I think that's a really good reveal. That
we see him get shot, don't we?
Oh no! The Colonel is dead in the car.
Colonel's dead already, and then
the Colonel is dead in the car, and then we see William Franklin get shot about 10 times.
Yes,
with really good blood effect, which at that point had only just been invented. I think they were invented for The Godfather, which was the year before.
Oh, okay.
So that's when you see the Godfather shot at the end of The Godfather. I think that's the first time that you see those effects where blood is bursting out of people. So that's actually quite a kind of cutting edge effect for this film at that point. Intercut with that, there's a lot of intercutting with this film where you see one set of action happening while another thing is happening as well. So
which is really annoying for podcasting purposes.
You see Lorrimer Van Helsing doing his vampire hunting preparation by melting a silver crucifix and casting it into a bullet in a pair of very fancy bullet pliers.
Yeah. Which he has a bit of trouble bashing off.
They're very pleased with this with that scene, aren't they? There's a lot.
And then he's holding the little, very small bullet.
And it's a lot of preparation for something which has no payoff at all later on.
So then we've got the next scene where he goes to confront DD Denham in his J.G. Ballardian skyscraper,
which I loved.
It's a great shot looking up at it, isn't it?
100%. I got a total Ballard vibes off of it. Well, really kind of 70s London.
Yeah.
And I love, like, you can say, oh, well, they didn't have any extras in it. They couldn't afford them. But I love the fact that there was, like, nobody there.
Yes.
Like, this stripped away, empty building. Brilliant. I like that.
Apparently, it was a famous tower block in London. It was the tallest tower block in London.
It's Centrepoint.
Yeah, and apparently it famously empty for a long period of time for some reason.
Oh, right, okay. Because Dracula lived in it.
They turned them very recently into expensive flats, which they then couldn't sell because they're too expensive.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So empty again.
The curse of Dracula.
And I think that scene is a very good... It's like the modern equivalent of Dracula's castle, isn't it? He's up there.
Yeah.
But no, it's not. It's D.D. Denham. It's someone completely different to Dracula.
So then he goes in and he talks to the Clove kind of character, or Igor kind of character, who is just the security guard. Security guard, which I really like that kind of idea as well. Where he's like, oh, he doesn't see no one. And he's the kind of yokel character, isn't he? But
and then the CCTV.
The CCTV spots him and he's allowed to go up and press the red button in the lift and go up and see D.D. Denham. And then I think it's a brilliant scene for the last in the series where these two greats are reunited on camera and they have a fantastic kind of tete-a-tete.
But were you meant to at any point to think that wasn't Dracula?
Well, no, because you can see him.
Oh, you can see him. So why go for the whole pretense of him doing a pretend accent?
It's not a pretend accent. That's his accent.
No, he changes. No, he does a fake voice. He does a fake voice when he's pretending to be someone else, and then he changes his voice after that point.
Oh, I missed that.
James is pulling faces. Well, I think he's just doing his original Hungarian voice as Count Dracula, isn't he?
Okay. I disagree.
Okay, I don't agree.
Professor Van Helsing, Mr. Denham, I have been expecting you. I rather thought you might. Please sit down. I have been expecting you ever since Julian Keeley took his own life. Or was he murdered? He was the servant of this foundation. I am the master. His nerves failed him.
The project he was working on was enough to shatter anyone's nerve.
It is merely a deterrent, nothing more. There is a group of us who are determined that the decadence of the present day can and will be halted. A new political regime is planned to lend weight to one's arguments. Amid the rush and whirl of humanity, it is sometimes necessary to be persuasive.
Persuasive?
There are a few vague rituals, it is true. A little occultism, a touch of mysticism at Pelham House, nothing more.
Evil begets evil. There is an unholy aura in this place. And it is not a question of a little occultism or a touch of mysticism, Mr. Denham. It is vampirism, and there's a host of damned souls at Pelham House.
And this, at this point, is only Dracula's second scene in this film, and that's 1 hour and 3 minutes in, which is quite weird. You've got this brilliant Holmes and Moriarty kind of scene here. I think they both know, I think they're both meant to know that he is Dracula, but they're doing this weird...
shadow boxing.
Peter Cushing has to have another cigarette at this point, which he says helps him to concentrate, goes for the lighter on Dracula's desk, then very badly and unconvincingly knocks some books onto the floor. As he picks up the books again, he slips in his Bible and puts those on the desk. And then you've got this very weird sequence where Count Dracula is waving his arms about and then puts his arm in a totally unrealistic place, but touches the Bible, which then sets off a puff of smoke, which makes me forgive the fact that his arm just goes in the most stupid.
One of the 200 fallibilities of vampires. They are the worst villains ever. And everything and anything is a fallibility to a vampire.
Yeah. Sunlight, water,
Twigs.
Bibles, Twigs.
Twigs.
Twigs. Yeah, you find out that he's Dracula. The kind of four horsemen of the apocalypse pop up. But they're down to... Are they down to 3 or 2 now? I can't remember.
Van Helsing's meant to be one of the apocalypse.
Yeah, so they apprehend Van Helsing, and then he becomes the stand-in for Freddie Jones. And then they're like, oh, we're going to go off to our luxury country pad now, where we've captured your granddaughter, Jessica. See, Van Helsing at that point is very angry.
Well, we've missed when he tried to shoot him with his little gun.
Oh yeah, well, he tries to shoot him, and then it's knocked. The gun is knocked out the way, isn't it? And he misses, which is a bit pathetic.
A waste of setup.
We cut back then to the country pad where Inspector Murray wakes up in the cellar because he's been kidnapped from the Rover P5B because he finds out that the Colonel is dead, and then we have a strange kind of echo of the scene in the first Dracula film. When the first ever screen wife of Dracula, or bride of Dracula, tries to seduce Jonathan Harker in the first Dracula, she tries it on in exactly the same way with Inspector Murray. And I think that's something that they're trying to make really obvious at that point. Did you know that this film wrapped exactly 15 years to the day to the wrapping of the first Hammer Dracula?
I do now, John.
Wow!
So it's like this film for me is a really good end of cycle with these Hammer films. I can't believe that they fit them all into 15 years.
Why didn't they unchain him at that point? If they want them to kill him, Why leave them in a position where he's just out of reach of all of the...
Ross, I've got an even better why didn't they undo... Later on, why is it that when one of the Afghan coat-wearing henchmen comes in to attack him, we've established that they've got access to guns? Why does he come to attack him with a small metal bar?
Because the metal bars will channel electricity. So.
Well, there you go, right? I think you've just answered your own question. Yeah. The mise en scene, mate.
Yeah, and there is
it doesn't make any sense.
Where he falls backwards against the brick wall, which is obviously a load of like printed bricks on a bit of paper, which is like wobbles in the wind.
In the wind, the Chinese lady comes forward, tries to seduce him. She is dispatched. Probably the first and only time in a vampire or a horror film by a dibber, which you use for planting seeds in the garden.
After he throws a net over her, which totally bewilders her.
He throws a net over her.
It worked in Roman times.
Then he finds a load of plant pots and a handy dibber and a handy hammer, and he dispatches her with a dibber. So that's the weirdest. Like, if Monty Don was on hand to kill vampires...
Monty Don looks like Frankenstein. I always think he looks...
he looks like Frankenstein's creature.
Creature, Ross. Sorry. No,
Adam Frankenstein.
James said his name's Adam Frankenstein.
Adam.
Yeah, he wears Frankenstein's clothes and he looks like a reanimated giant man.
Take that out as well, because he might listen to this podcast.
I don't care. You slagged off Neil Gaiman, I'm going to slag off Monty Don.
I like Monty Don, though. I don't care about Neil Gaiman. So then at this point, there is another great twist, which is another bit of Don Houghton's like clever writing. The vampires are dispatched with a sprinkler system, which I absolutely love.
Yeah, and then a weird video effect is
really weird video effect. Yeah, I don't know what effect that is,
no.
And
it obviously looked shit when they edited it, and they go, "What are we going to do?"
Yeah, put an effect on it.
Do a bit of Quantel on it.
What I've written, my notes for that sequence are: kids, take health and safety seriously, right? Because a sprinkler system, a working, operating sprinkler system, comes to our hero's rescue.
Yeah, it's not just fire; it's vampires you're saving yourself.
It's not just vampires, exactly. Don't ever underestimate a working sprinkler system.
All you need to dispatch the age-old...
The undead.
The undead is a little bit of running water. Is that like spitting on them? Could you spit on them?
It's got to be pure water.
No, because it's going to be pure. That's right, because Van Helsing says, clear running water, which reminds them of purity.
Purity.
At one point. That's what he says, purity, which reminds them of purity.
So at this point, our hero, Inspector Murray, who I think should have gone on to get his own series after this.
Yeah.
Maybe we can write some fan fiction for that.
There you go.
Yeah. Bang. So he escapes, but at that point, where are all the other Hell's Angels? He's in this house. It's absolutely empty. Like, where is everyone? Yeah. So he finds Jessica, who's laying out on the slab, ready to be turned into Dracula's bride. And then he goes upstairs to find the control room, the computer room, and he's looking on the CCTV, and he sees that...
He flicks one switch, which was exactly the right switch.
But he finds that the 4 horsemen are in there with Jessica, but he can't see Dracula on the CCTV,
cool.
Which is a great touch. But then a guy comes in... Then Mungo Jerry comes in, kicks him in the balls with a like a really comedic kind of facial expression. But then the Hell's Angel is electrocuted by, as we say, sticking his tire iron in a computer.
Yes, he just comes in to beat him up with an iron bar, despite having access to guns. And they have a very, very poorly choreographed fight sequence.
And that fight goes on much longer than we described it.
He electrocutes himself, and I noticed that as he was being electrocuted, he also kind of like pulled some wires over his chest for an effect. He goes, and I'm still being electrocuted.
And then he falls face
very
flat in front of the camera, and obviously falls onto
Is that what causes the fire? Because there is a fire, isn't
there? Yes.
So
I find that all of these films we're watching, by this point, I completely lose the plot of what's going on, why anything is happening.
It's really easy to follow, Cleves. It's like, a guy sticks a tire iron in a computer.
Explodes.
He explodes. He falls on a mattress, and then the floor falls in.
And the house sets on fire.
Sets the house on fire. while this
but it doesn't, because that house, obviously they couldn't do too many fire effects in there.
No.
There are lots of points where people are jumping away from fire, and then there's a flickering yellow light on them from another view.
We're in the room. Dracula is convincing, through the power of his mind, one of his 4 horsemen to crush the vial of...
Black Death Plus.
What are they called?
Vial.
Yeah, of Black Death Maximus Bacillus Pestis, which is not what they call it in the film, but, now...
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
That's the name of our band, though.
More scientific than Hammer managed, John.
So he crushes that, and then instantaneously is infected and gets lots of...
and almost dies instantaneously, which make that plague completely useless. If you die instantaneously from catching it, it's never going to spread.
No.
Anyway.
But he writhes around.
I got excited about that point,
lovely...
and it was very short, and I realised that I was more excited than I needed to be in order to make that point. So
he's covered in boils. He's roaming around. There's some very dubbed moaning noises. And then, obviously, there's the explosion. The room catches fire. Inspector Murray rushes in, rescues Jessica. The other 2 guys leg it, and you never see them there again. They go home to their wives. Busy day at the office, darling. Oh, very busy, darling. Yeah, we just avoided the apocalypse. I've been a slave to a vampire for the past 2 years.
There may be some awkward questions in the press over the next few days.
They'll have to appear stood at a gate with their wives eating a hamburger.
I just got to say, there's no kids.
I was about to say DLT stylee with their own tape recorder to make sure they're not being misquoted. First off, let's just get one thing clear. It's not kids. The best press conference ever by David Lee Travis during the U-Train.
Quack, oops.
All of this can stay in the podcast because this is in the public
this is what
sphere,
people want.
Okay?
He came down the path. We can put a picture up with the podcast if you want. DLT. I've probably still got it on my phone somewhere.
You've got it tatted on your back.
DLT,
oh, you know it.
DLT can be the cover of this review. Satanic versus Dracula with a picture of DLT. So Jessica is saved. Dracula then goes to fight Van Helsing. There's a really nice tracking shot of Dracula at that point. Peter Cushing goes to throw a chair at Dracula, but actually throws it through a window, jumps out the window. Dracula follows in. So I presume that at this point you're left to think that the fire will destroy the plague and the infected man, because he'll burn to death and the fire will, rid us of...
Or you just assume that you stop thinking about that.
Yeah, well... Like, you stop thinking about the 2 guys who have legged it.
Yeah.
And then we have Peter Cushing run into a forest. He's followed by... He's followed by Christopher Lee as
slow pace.
Dracula. A very slow pace.
So there was a point where everything you said was happening, and Dracula was just watching.
Yeah.
It's just like looking,
smiling.
Grimacing.
I thought it was quite chilling. I thought it was quite chilling that he was just smiling.
He could have just killed everyone. Just ripped them to pieces.
And then Peter Cushing goes through a bush with his camel coat on, gets a bit of his camel coat caught on the bush, and he's like, hang on, this is Hawthorne. Earlier on in the film...
I mentioned Hawthorne.
Earlier on in the film, I mentioned that Hawthorne is very bad because it's what Christ crowns thorns.
Thorns was made from. Yeah.
So I'm going to wait here for Count Dracula. In fact, I'm going to call Dracula over to see.
And he's so stupid. This person who's managed to build this big multinational
in under 2 years.
Yeah, he's managed to pull all of this together to build this plague and all this, destroy the world. He's so stupid. You can go, Dracula. Come through this bush.
I'm your arch enemy.
You'll get a bit scratched. Oh, keep coming.
So he goes into the bush, and I did wince at this part because the bush looks genuinely very thorny and horrible.
Apparently, he did hurt himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So he's pushing.
He's a trooper, Chris Lee.
He's pushing through the bush,
getting a bit scratched.
Peter Cushing is watching him, going, "I don't really know what to do next." But then he notices there's like one of those fences made out of like wooden bits with wire.
Conveniently.
Can I just tell a story here?
Yeah.
And we might need to cut it out.
Yeah.
So when we were younger...
When you say we, do you mean you?
Yes, because I'm the only one who does any work on this podcast. So...
Oh, amazing. Here we are. James has sent us this, Ross. That's the picture that's going on the front of the podcast.
There it is.
Dave Lee Travis is Dracula.
Well, we need that recorder.
Zoom.
Aung San Suu Kyi said, I kept her going while she was in prison, everyone. Don't forget that.
So when I was younger, me and my friends were we were playing in the field over by the girls' grammar school, and we came across a lad who was known as Podgy. He was crouched in a bush, burning all his school books.
Oh. But Ross, you should point out that he was somewhat of a local character.
He was a local scary lad who, if you went down the shops, you'd be really scared if you were sitting on the bin by the shops.
Was he mentally unwell? Or
yeah, he had a face. He had a face tattooed on his arse, and if he bent over, he could
an arse tattooed on his face.
Yeah. He was burning all his school books, and we came across him, and we were just frozen with fear.
Yeah.
At that point.
Who is we at this point, please?
My brother and a boy called. He's probably dead.
He's probably dead.
Most of the people I grew up with are dead now.
And you're laughing.
But it's true.
I'm alive, you get.
Not you, him.
No, all the people on my estate have all died.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
okay.
They've all crashed their cars or whatever. We were just frozen. It was like, fuck, it's Podgy. What are we going to do?
What year was this, please?
So as well.
The way you're describing this,
he's still alive.
I'm imagining it as at least like 1974.
I was probably, how old would I be? First year. How old was that, Jim?
1990.
1990.
So I think that he had been expelled from school, and it was some kind of ritual burning of books that he was doing on his own. Amazing. And I think that we came across it, and
cathartic.
And he started talking. I can't remember. He was just talking to us about how much he hated school, and
you've got to leave this in. Just beep the names out.
And we were just so frightened of this boy, and we just standing there with fear. And then we went, run! And we all ran. And me and my brother running, and my brother goes, get your knife out! And I was running, and I had a penknife I got for my birthday. And I'm running, I got my knife out! And
oh my God.
Unfortunately, was quite a large boy, and he couldn't run as fast as we could. And he got caught by Podgy.
No way.
I just kept running, holding my penknife, and I jumped onto a bench, and then jumped onto the top of a fence, and just vaulted over it and kept running, leaving my little brother behind, who was stuck behind this fence, and he couldn't get out. Yeah, screaming.
And the mercy.
Yeah, the mercy of him. All right.
You were like Robert Carlyle in 28 Weeks Later, weren't you?
Yeah.
Running away from the house.
And it was all
with
like
your wife
thorn
on
bushes.
the window.
It's all thorn bushes, and he was like trying to get through these thorn bushes to get over this fence.
Who was your brother?
My brother.
Right.
And he was getting impaled by all these thorns. And eventually he got over there. And we were so scared of Podgy, but we were also scared of my mum, that I had to pull these four thorns out of his skin. Like, quite long, probably about an inch long, pulling them out of his bleeding legs. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? He's got. He's gonna kill him. He's gonna kill him. I don't know. We're both crying.
What you're describing is so much like the film with Martin Freeman that we've talked about before. Is it
Ghost Stories?
Ghost Stories,
yeah.
It's that. It's like that.
Eventually, my brother, just covered in blood, just dripping from all these holes in his legs and arms, just came walking along, and he said, "It's just a really sad." Like, gotta say, this guy turned out to be like the most out gay guy, which we probably know at our school, but completely we didn't realise. But he's just a lovely guy.
He won him over.
Yeah, just won him over.
The power of compassion won him over.
Yeah, Podgy told him his life story and just how persecuted he felt from school. And he just said, Oh, I just feel really sorry for him.
Ross, you realise that just basically just sounds like a proto-episode of Queer Eye for the Straight Guy.
Okay, I'm going to beep out all the names for that, but
So he probably just needed to be understood.
Yeah. But I just remember my brother being stuck in that bush, and I also remember there was someone walking their dog, and he was shaking the fence, going, "Help me, help me!" And they just walked past.
Oh my God.
Was this in Poole?
Yeah, Poole.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in Poole. It was in state in Poole. By the sewage farm.
Lovely.
Deary me.
So anyway, Christopher Lee pushes through this bush. Peter Cushing's there in his camel coat.
And then he's on the floor, like, gnashing
So then
his
he
teeth.
trips.
Which is the poster of the film.
Yeah, it is. And his foot gets captured by a root. He can't escape. And then Peter Cushing grabs this stake out of this fence, does him with
Not in his heart.
Yeah, that's what I noted that. But towards the end, when it cuts back later, it looks like it's ended up. But the initial entry is like through his stomach.
I would always be really anxious about killing a vampire. That it'd be really hard to actually hit their heart, wouldn't it?
Yes, which is the old one in Dad's Army who does. They don't like it happen.
Godfrey.
Jones?
Oh no, Jones. That's Jones. That's Jones.
Yeah, so he does it in more of the style of him, doesn't he? Going, they don't like it happen, sir. They don't like it happen, sir. But that's more like what he does. And then, so the ending really, I think, is really, really downbeat.
And
it
doesn't resolve anything.
No.
There's no end. There's no coda.
It's a bit of an
in the background. There's like this infected man just touching policemen and all that kind of stuff. The next film will just be The City from James Herbert the Rats. It's not the rats that killed the world. So this is where the two universes convene.
So I love the film until the last 5 minutes, and I think it's really sad that the series ends on this really weird, not very good denouement where he's just hanging there, isn't he? And Peter Cushing's holding in the ring. Yeah.
Just the ring, yeah. Does he take on the mantle of the
maybe
Prince
he
of
does.
Darkness?
Maybe he does.
That is why he looks so emancipated. I'm saying the wrong word again. Emaciated.
Emancipated. I'm free from Christopher Lee. Run.
He starts wearing a white dress and a purple sash and goes round. Votes for women. I think it's sad that what I find is a really strong film. The series ends on this funny little kind of nothing.
It's an awful, rubbish way for the vampire to die. He walked through a bush.
Yeah,
and got stuck and then got stabbed by a fence.
Presumably, they all thought, "Oh, we'll be back here again in next year. See you all."
I think Christopher Lee was so pissed off of it by this point.
I read that he said that he didn't like it and he felt that his character was a mixture between Dr. No and Howard Hughes. But I think, that's a great shame. That's why you shouldn't ever really listen to actors. So I thought it was a really cool idea. The notion that you would use this power.
Yeah,
this kind of dark, otherworldly power to become a person of influence.
Yeah.
Pulling the strings from behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That's a far more better take than just him loitering about a church.
I think it's a much better Dracula film than... I'm sure at some point we'll get to all the other ones in this series. I think it's a better Dracula film than the majority. It's much better than Dracula Has Risen from the Grave.
Right.
It's better than Dracula Prince of Darkness. It's just much more enjoyable. It might even be... You might even think it's better than Dracula, which some people who, if they ever listen to this, if hearing me say that, will cause some people's heads to explode.
The thing is, though, man, I've heard that Dracula story's been told so many times now. It could be the best version of it. It'd be like, but because I know what the story is, I'm not interested anymore. And as James was saying earlier, I'm a massive fan of the Francis Ford Coppola version of Dracula.
Yeah.
So that for me is that's the best version in my mind. So
right. I did that on purpose then.
I know.
I do like it. I do like it, but I'm not as fond of it as I am of these films. Because these films for me are like meeting up with old friends, because I've watched them literally for my whole life. And these two are probably my favourites.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all of the Hammer films, besides Plague of the Zombies, which is something I think we should do for this podcast as well, because there are two characters in there who definitely should have had their own series, and they should do big finish dramas with the characters. So I'm sure we'll get to that at some point. But
so, John, would you recommend this film?
I would recommend this film 100% to someone who I thought was going to get it. I wouldn't recommend it to someone whose favourite film was like The Age of Ultron or some fucking bullshit like that. Because I don't even know what that is. I haven't seen any Marvel films. I couldn't care less. I don't care about 99% of contemporary popular culture. I couldn't care less about. And if it's someone who's watched Bridgerton or watched that thing about the stupid girl playing chess, or all that shit, I don't care. So I wouldn't show it to them, but I'd show it to people who I think are going to get it. And I know that they would extract the maximum amount of enjoyment from this film, which is a huge amount. It's a rich seam to be mined.
What would you give it out of 5, John?
10.
No, you can't just keep making up scores.
Well, it's a 5.
5. Okay, I'm putting that in my spreadsheet now.
With all of the errors in it, it's so immensely enjoyable and fun.
Mr. Randall, would you recommend this film, and what score would you give it?
Based on what I was talking about earlier, and its kind of touchstones and resonances with kind of British culture that I really, really enjoyed, and the fact that it almost had that kind of, as John said, that kind of almost J.G. Ballardian feel to it at certain points. I did enjoy watching it. It's the thing that I've enjoyed so far the most on General Witchfinders. So I would give it a 3 out.
Oh, fantastic!
That's very good, James.
Thank you.
I'm sure you've given other things 3, but
okay, well, 3.5 then.
3.5. Yeah, I think you gave last week's 3, whatever we did last week.
Okay,
Stone
Tape. Yeah, so 3.5.
Yeah. Oh, I enjoyed this more than Stone Tape.
Yeah, it's more. It's not as good as the Stone Tape, but it's more enjoyable.
There's more interesting things to reflect on for me than some of the madness in Stone Tape.
Whereas the Stone Tape, it's really, really good, but you don't necessarily enjoy it as a rollicking, good, fun kind of.
I love the Stone Tape so much. Anyway,
did you?
I was going to give this a 1 before I spoke to you guys about it.
You're insane, aren't you?
Talking to you guys have pushed this up to me.
Yeah, to a 2.
To a 2, yeah. Let's give it a 2.
Progress, John. Progress.
2.
Yeah, it was my least favourite. I just found.
You thought that was worse than the Rats?
Yeah, definitely. I felt it was boring, dull, and ugly. However,
ugly. It's a really beautifully shot film.
No, I just felt I hated. No.
Next.
As I was watching it, it was it's similar to some of the things you guys have been saying about when you was reading The Rats, for example. I was just like, this is just a waste of my time. And I was so pissed. Earlier, I was like, I can't remember anything about that film I watched on Monday. I'm going to have to watch it now while I eat my dinner.
Again.
And
Do
I was
not
like,
take notes?
I do, but they didn't make any sense. It just,
Ross.
But, yes, however, speaking to you guys, I feel like we could make a much better version of that film.
You think this every week?
No, but however, I think that talking through those ideas, you go, yeah, that's a brilliant idea. That's a brilliant idea. Do more of that. Don't just do like people chained up, gnashing their teeth. I'm going to give it a 2.5.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Now for something horrific.
In the 2-week gap between episodes, Cleaver, who voraciously consumes all in front of him, food, pizza, air, is also consuming television and reading, like David Bowie's character in The Man Who Fell to Earth. He's got 10 screens on in front of him, and electrodes are going into his eyes. And me and James are like, Ross, we can't read stuff this quick or watch it.
Come on, guys, what have you done? Tell me something.
I've got a book here, which is what I'm reading at the moment, which is called Night Terrors, The Ghost Stories of E.F. Benson. So he was a contemporary of M.R. James. So I was inspired to read his stories by the knowledge of his kind of friendship with M.R. James. They're not as good as M.R. James's, but they are of acceptable quality.
Looks like a nice book.
It is a nice book. I I could probably write stories as good as this. That's how good they are. But
you do write very good stories, John. But you write them quite slowly.
I just got to finish them. Yeah. I mean, you can see how many stories he's got in here. It's really, really thick.
That looks cool.
The one I'm reading at the moment is quite funny, where a man has been run over by a steamroller. They're all kind of 1920s and before, I would say. A man has been run over by a steamroller, comes back as a ghost, but then still goes to the seance that he planned to go to, and then finds out that the medium in the seance is, in fact, a fraud because he's a ghost, and all the people that she says she talks to, who includes Napoleon, aren't in the seance with her. So that's quite a fun one. That's called Mr. Tilly's Seance. The main one that I was reading is called Negotium Perambulans, which is a really good story about a man who goes to live in a Cornish village and finds that the locals are being killed and eaten by a giant slug.
Ooh, no.
It's really good. It's better than I've made it sound, obviously.
No, you made it sound amazing. So you couldn't possibly make it sound better than it did.
So yeah, that's what I'm reading at the moment. In bed. I'm reading something different on the toilet, but that's not to do with the podcast.
James, have you got anything you can share?
Very obtusely linked to the theme of horror, I guess, really. But this week I've been watching and enjoying the new Adam Curtis series, which is on the iPlayer, called Can't Get You Out of My Head. Now, the thing about Adam Curtis is that, and this is very much my take on it, is he just always gives you food for thought. His takes and the things that he analyses and brings to light. Like, for example, I didn't know anything about the story of Michael X in this country, and I highly recommend, if you don't know, finding out about it. And also, he talks about the Black Panther movement and Afeni Shakur, who's Tupac Shakur's mum. And what she went through. And again, I had no idea whatsoever. So he's really fantastic at picking out these tiny, these smaller narratives throughout history. It's when he then tries to tie them together into this larger, overarching theme that I think, this doesn't really work. And but at the same time, when you're watching it, you are always thinking. And for me, that's the role of any good art, is that it makes you think.
Hypernormalization, was that
yes, yeah, that's the one before.
Yeah, that really shook my world after watching that, to the point that I felt like I gave up all social media after that point. I just hated the 21st century after that point, and I just felt like, why did I have children after that? After watching that documentary, because the world is so fucked up. However, his documentaries are so powerful, and as much as they just get you thinking more than anything you've ever come across on normal television.
I wouldn't think if I were you, Cleves.
No, it is dangerous, I think.
Just watch Satanic Rites of Dracula you'll feel fine.
But yeah, so the horror of the real world, I suppose you can say. But and again, he kind of keeps going back to this idea of the rise of the individual and the role of individualization in the late 20th century, and the role of the me generation. And that is for me the touchstone that he keeps coming back to, and I find that very, very interesting.
I find it very hard, the amount he puts on that you've got no control about the world. That but it is true, but it's a horrible thing to think about, and I think that 99.9% of everyone in the world don't think about that, and the 1.1% of people who do think about it, it just really upsets them. I was doing okay before you told me this. I'm glad you told me it, but at the same time, you've just really, really upset me. There
you go. So that's my recommendation.
I'm recommending a film I saw the other day called Possessor. Possessor is a word I have real trouble saying. Listen after the titles to find out
why.
Yeah. So Possessor was a film which it's the son of David Cronenberg, isn't it?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. Saw this on Twitter. Thought I'd give it a go. The trailer makes it look like it's going to be a much more action-packed sci-fi adventure than it actually is. It's a very art house affair. However, it was really good. It was a proper old school, weird sci-fi. What the hell is going on? Mindfuck of a film. Basic premise is that there is some kind of secret organization where it looks like if you pay enough money, you can get someone to come along and possess someone who can get close to a target, and then that using some kind of weird technology which involves lots of body horror and needles going into brains and all that kind of stuff. And then while the possessor sits in a strange kind of Geiger-esque machine controlling the body of this person, they can get close to the target and then they can assassinate them. And then at the end of the job, the last thing the possessor would do is commit suicide, thus leaving no trace at all to how that person got close to the target. And of course, as in all these things, all goes wrong. But it's great. Highly recommend Possessor. Next time on General Witchfighters, we're covering Horror Express, which is available to rent or buy on YouTube, Apple or Prime in the UK. So join us then. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe, spread the word, and
follow us on Twitter.
Follow us on Twitter on General Witch 1. We've had lots of nice chats with all of our lovely new friends on
We
there.
have, haven't we? It started to burgeon.
More burgeoning, please.
More burgeoning. But until next time, happy day.
Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Love, light, and peace.
You have been listening to the General Witchfinders. Support the show and continue the conversation at patreon.com/General Witchfinders. Subscribe and spread the word at generalwitchfinders.com. Farewell, and don't have nightmares.
I was going to say let's rip, that's not one.
She lets rip.
No, she
and then they fold her up and they put her away in this weird crate at the end of the episode.
Someone's washing machine's kicking off.
It's not mine.
George, you can hear our washing machine. And Kitty's having a meltdown because I'm laughing so much.
Okay, I'm sure it'll be fine.
I might have to go upstairs in a minute.
Can you close the door?
Oh, Kitty wouldn't come downstairs. She thought that someone was down here. And it was me.
It's like John's like, anyway, where were we? So before we go ahead, but fucking hell, it's going to take off.
Right.
Ross is obsessed with washing machines.
I'm going to go upstairs. I'll go upstairs.
John, is your battery charged up?
Oh, shit. Oh, it probably is, because I've had it on all the time now. It's probably going to be fine. Right, I'm going to go upstairs carrying all this now.
I just remembered when he dropped the books. And
yeah, that's right.
And hid a
Bible.
Well, that's what I'm going to bloody say now.
Sorry, shut up.
So,
and then he realises running water. I remember that when Johnny.
Hang on, no.
Wait.
You're running ahead. You're running ahead. Firstly, I don't want to be part of a problematic podcast. So,
too late for that.
So they're what the hell have I written here? Wrapped exactly. Oh yeah, I've already mentioned that.
So now we are going to be doing
something malevolent.
Now for something malevolent.
Malevolent.
I put in possessor.
Jesus Christ, Cleves.
What?
Right, go again. You can't put that in. Or do you want me to do it for you?
No. I'm just going to stop smiling.
No.
I can't say it.
Are you thinking about Tubby Walcott again, or whatever his name was?
Tubby Walcott. I watched a film called Possessor. It's a hard word to say.
Possessor?
Possessor. Yeah.
Possessor.
Exorcism. Possessor.
What noise is that?
mind.
This is like the real life Enfield poltergeist. Ross has been taken over.
I'm not going to get this word out of my.
What is that? Like you've swallowed something.
Just think about the fact that you're not in control of your life, Ross.
Yeah. I got a fluff, hang on.
There you are.
It sounds like Norman Wisdom.
Stop it! Oh, God. Ridiculous.
One more time.
I can't do it.
Possessor.
Okay, I'm talking about a film called Possessor.
Right, I'm worried my battery's going to go, Cleve, so you've
Sorry.
got to...
Possessor, which is directed by Brandon Cronenberg.
You can do it. You can do it. Come on.
Directed by Brandon Cronenberg, which is, I assume, the son of the other Cronenberg. It's a good film. Watch it. I can't talk about it now. I've been laughing too much. It's a very good film.
The end.
Well done.